Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video, we're going to finish up talking about Python lists because in the last video we ran out of time. We only have a few more functions to cover, so this video shouldn't be too long. If you did happen to miss the last video though, take a look in the top right hand corner of this video. I'll place a link there, or you can take a look in the description. I'll also have a link there as well. With all that being said, let's just get right into it. So as usual, you're going to want to open up PyCharm. I had the file from the previous video open. We left off covering the Python pop method. Just a little recap on what that does. The Python pop method will remove an element from a list and give you the opportunity to store that element in a variable. So you're still able to work with it in some capacity, but that element is no longer a part of the list. So the next method that I'd like to cover is the Python sort method. What this does is, it's exactly as it sounds. It'll sort your lists either alphabetically or numerically. So if you take a look at letters and numbers, you can see that they're completely out of order. To fix that, we're going to use the sort method. Now this method is permanent and it will permanently change the letters list and it'll no longer be in this order. So that means that all of the index values are going to be completely different. So if we wanted to reference G, after using the sort method, it'll no longer have an index value of 0. To use the sort method, just like any other method, you're going to start off by typing out the variable that's referencing the list that you'd like to sort. So in our case, letters and numbers. And then type in dot sort. And this should sort both letters and numbers alphabetically and numerically. And you got to remember, this is permanent within the program while it's running. So G and 8 will no longer have an index value of 0. So let's print this out to the terminal and see what we actually get. So we can print out the numbers list. I don't know why I did that first. Print out the letters list. And if we come up and run this program again, you'll see that we do get A through G, but in alphabetical order, and 1 through 9 in numerical order. So just to show you that the effects of the sort method are permanent, if we were to print out, let's say, the very first value of the letters list, so if we go letters, opening and closing bracket, and type in 0 to refer to the first element within that list, you'd think it'd be G. But remember, we use this sort method before we reference the first element in the letters list. So if we run this, you'll see that we actually get a value of A, but that's only because we used the sort method and it rearranged this so that it's in alphabetical order and it's no longer in the order in which we actually received the values. One other thing we can do with the sort method is actually place an argument within the parentheses. So if we type in reverse equals true, this will, instead of sorting the list in alphabetical order from A to Z, it'll sort the list from Z to A. So if we run this, we could take a look at what the program will do in the terminal, and you'll see that we get G, F, E, D, C, B, A instead of A to G. We can also do this with the numbers list. We type in reverse equals true for here, and we'll get 9 counting down to 1 instead of 1 all the way up to 9. So let's say you want to sort your list, but you don't want the effects of that sort to be permanent. So we're going to come up and let's just erase all of this. We can actually use the Python sorted function. So we can type in print. So since this isn't permanent, we got to do this within the print function because the following line afterwards, the effects of the sorted function will be gone. So we can type in sorted and then the variable that is holding your list. So we can also do this for the numbers one. We'll go sorted and numbers. So if we print this out, you'll see that we'll get the same effects of using the sorted method. We get our A to G and 1 to 9, but if we go a few lines further and reference the very first element in the letters and numbers list, so we go opening closing brackets, first element, opening closing brackets, first element again, and we can run this, and you'll see that we'll get our G and 8 in the terminal, but when we use the sorted method, we didn't get G and 8, we got A and 1. So the effects of the sorted function isn't permanent like the sort method. One practical use of using the sorted function is to make a copy of one of your lists, but have that copy in alphabetical or numerical order. So if we made a copy of, let's say, the letters list, we'll call it letters copy, and we'll set that equal to a sorted version of the letters list. So now we have a new variable with a sorted version of the letters list. And if we were to print this out, the letters copy, and let's actually erase this and this, but we won't do a sorted version of the letters list so we can actually see the difference. And we'll run this. And you'll see that we do get a copy of the letters list, but it's in alphabetical order instead of the order in which it came. The next method that I'd like to cover is the reverse method. Now, be a little careful with this because we just covered the reverse argument for the sort method. And what the reverse argument for the sort method does is it'll actually change the way Python sorts the list. So it'll change it from A to Z to A. But what the reverse method does is it'll just reverse the order of your list without sorting it. So if we were to apply this to the letters list, the reverse, and we were to print this out, we can run it and take a look and see what we get in the terminal. You'll see that our very first element is now C, but if you take a look, that was the very last element. So it just took it and flopped it essentially. And you should also take note that the reverse method is permanent. So if you take a look, we actually used the reverse method before we printed it out. So it will change the index values of all the elements within your list for the rest of the program after you use it. The next method that I'd like to cover is the count method. What this does is it'll count the number of instances of an element. So I created a new list, numbers to count. And what we can do is we'll print out the number of elements or occurrences of a specific value. So if we type in numbers to count dot count, and then here we just place in the value that we'd like to count. So if I wanted to figure out how many 5s were in the num to count list, I would just put in 5 within the method. So if we were to print this out, we'll see that we get a value of 5. And if you were to come in here and count out all of these, you would see that there are 5 5s within the nums to count. So this is kind of a bad example. So let's try 1. There we go. We got 3. So if we come in, we see we got 1, 2, 3 instances of the number 1 within the num to count list. All right, so the last method that I'd like to cover is the index method. What this will do is it'll find the index value of a specified value within a list. This is pretty helpful when you don't know the exact index value, but you know the value of it. If we wanted to find the index value of, let's say, 7 in the numbers list, we could type in numbers dot index, and then we can look for the value of 7. And what the index method will do is it'll figure out what the index value of the specified value within those parentheses are. And since we're printing it out, it'll display that in the terminal. And we'll see we get an index value of 2. And if we were to start and count this out, we'd go 0, 1, 2. We do in fact find that 7 does have an index value of 2. One thing you have to be careful about when using the index method is that it'll only find the very first occurrence of that value. So it starts at an index value of 0 and then works its way up. And once it finds one occurrence of that, it stops and prints out that index value. So if we wanted to find an index value of this 1 here, we actually couldn't use the index method because when we try finding this 1 comes before this. So it's actually going to give us an index value of 0. So if we take a look, index 1, and if we print this out, you'll see that we get a 0, but we wanted this one. So it's a little hard to use. You're going to have to figure out a different way to find the index value of this value when you have multiple instances within a list. So because of that, it's give or take with the index method. So that's it for lists. We covered enough to really get you started, and you should be good to go for the rest of the series if you understand everything. If you happen to miss the beginning of this series, go check it out. The link to your left will take you directly to the start of the playlist. In the next video, things are going to start to get a little bit more interesting as we're going to start talking about loops. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you get notified when I upload new videos. See you in the next video.